Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the Vienna School of International Studies, Diplomatische Akademie. I apologize that we are a few minutes late, but we have such a high-level group of people here that they are sought after in many places in Vienna, and I understand they came directly from the Austrian Parliament for discussions. So welcome to all of you here. Welcome to a very timely event. We welcome you to a discussion about how can we keep up connectivity or even improve connectivity concerning what we used to call the Silk Road, which was later, as you all know, called the Belt and Road Initiative. And now we are talking about, this afternoon, about the Middle Corridor. But whatever the name is, and there is a good reason why it's called Middle Corridor, also on the map, the main point remains. We are in instability times, in times where it's highly likable that many of the players around the globe talk about friend-shoring, near-shoring, fast-shoring, or whatever shoring, secure shoring, and less about the chances of connectivity and the need of connectivity. I think the mood is already turning towards talking about what sort of connectivity can be achieved. What is the best way of creating added value by the way we have our supply lines, the way we create some sort of independence, not only meant by the big players that are around here. And that's the reason why I think it's so timely to talk about how Central Asia and Europe can improve their connectivity by, and I'm very outspoken here now, by avoiding Russia. As we know, the trade lines of Central Asia go mainly now, even nowadays, through Russia. I had the figure that some years ago, 90% of the trade from the Central Asian countries went through the northern route, went through Russia. This has decreased with the sanctions and the consequences of sanctions, but still there is the insecurity of having no alternative to this northern route which connects Europe and Central Asia. And the second point is there is a strong European interest. A strong European interest to create a better connectivity with the Central Asian countries. And this has even a name. This is the EU Global Strategy, which is partly also had to do with these connections. And I'm very happy to say that the interest in the European Union in these sort of relations with Central Asia are growing. And I could name you a lot of institutions, European institutions, which are now established also in Central Asia, and the interest is going there. It's very difficult. We are all familiar with the situation of the European Union, which has to deal not only with a lot of internal problems, but also with the issue, when can we finally enlarge to our neighbors in the European Union? And then the rest used to be almost silence. And now from the European Union side, it's a bit more than silence. There is a strong interest in how can we create a stable, secure, and fast supply lines. And as far as I know, one of the main arguments for the Middle Corridor is that it's much faster, certainly faster than the sea route, certainly faster also than the northern route. But it depends on a few preconditions. And this, I guess, will be the discussion of this afternoon, how we can all help to make sure that these are stable supply lines. Logistics are not very easy if so many countries are concerned. And you have to create all sorts of coordination mechanisms. And I know that there exist already some of them. Kazakhstan has been very active in this regard, but also Kyrgyzstan and certainly also countries which are interested in being on this middle route, like Turkey and other countries. So there is a promising chance for bridging the global divide by improving the role of Central Asia and Caucasus in restoring the global connectivity. And I would say, geopolitical extra for this is more independence for many of these partners which are active here. And I'm not so much talking about the European countries now, but about the Central Asian countries, which have had a strong interest in this sort of improving their independence. And I'm again saying that it's about independence also from Russia, because diversification is the word of the day. And you know, in our energy supplies in Europe, we also talk about diversification. My own country has not been so successful so far as natural gas is concerned. Even this September, we still had 80% of our gas imports coming through the pipelines from Russia. 80% is much too much if you want to diversify. So there is much work to do in this sort of diversification, which creates more independence. So that's why I think we have a lot on our table to discuss this afternoon. What is possible and what is pragmatic and what can be realized. We can all expect that the European Union has a strong interest if there is the right offer also from the middle corridor coming. And I'm looking forward to the discussion, which should have geoeconomics and geopolitics at the same time, because both are needed. But my own take as director of this institution is, when I talk to my students, be practical and try to realize things that can be realized. Visions are fine. You need visions at the beginning, but then the practical days come, and we have learned also within our own European Union how difficult the implementation of visions can be. But with this, I stop here already, because I am only the host, and I give then the floor to the real organizers who come from Serbia, actually, and who come from Azerbaijan. And they should have the word and introduce what we are going to discuss this afternoon. So welcome from my side.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ambassador Brix, for your kind introduction. It's a great privilege to be again at the Diplomatic Academy here in Vienna, and to be able to work with the Diplomatic Academy on this important project. I'm exceptionally honored that this time around there is another partner to the conference that we're organizing here in Vienna, and that is the Nizami Ganjavi International Center of Azerbaijan, a very prominent think tank from the Caucasus, and I'm sure that you'll be hearing more from Nizami Ganjavi. There are a number of distinguished members of the Nizami Ganjavi Foundation here, as well as board members. I'm going to introduce them in due course once we start our discussion. But it gives me, at the beginning, a profound privilege to introduce our premier panelist, and that is Djoomart Otorbaev. He's a former Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan. And one of the most, I'd say, prominent thinkers of Central Asia. Not just a former politician of a sort, but a real scholar and author, and somebody who I believe has profound content to share with us. About a year ago, we started this, and now we can call it an annual, and I very much hope that we're going to stick to organizing a fall discussion in Vienna every year about Central Asia and the South Caucasus, as this part of the world geography grows in prominence in the context of the accelerating geopolitical recession of our times. And these developments have highlighted the growing significance of the middle corridor that Ambassador Brix mentioned, that is spanning Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Europe. But the alignment of the middle corridor, if you will, with China's Belt and Road Initiative, as well as European Union's global gateway, is a nexus that I believe is worth discussing today. So we're going to be addressing a number of these issues through a panel of distinguished panelists that I have with me, but I'm going to introduce them after the star speaker, the key speaker, our key contributor, Prime Minister Otorbaev, gives his presentation. As I said, he is not just the former Prime Minister of Central Asia, of a Central Asian country. He is a scholar and a great thinker, so it gives me great privilege to welcome him to the stage of the Diplomatic Academy in Vienna. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Nizami Ganjavi International Center and the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development for organizing this conference and for their invitation for me to attend this conference. My special thanks also go to the Vienna School of International Studies, not only for organizing today's event, but especially for many years of support for training of diplomats from the countries of the former Soviet Union, which was especially key in the early stages of our independence. Dear Ambassador Brix, let me tell you that your academy has a truly legendary status among our diplomats. The theme of the conference is utmost important for my region of Central Asia, perhaps something also for South Caucasus. And the title of the conference was formulated very straightforwardly and precisely. Not building, but restoring global connectivity as it was when the region was really connected, though it was a long time ago, as Ambassador already mentioned. The region was a bridge between Asia and Europe, and between 10th and 15th centuries AC, it was the most advanced, developed part of the world, mainly because of being bridge and being connected Asia and Europe. Not only on trade only, not only investments only, not only in economic development, but bringing people together in the region. When West met East, the boiling pot of talents boiled over there, creating masterpieces of science, writing, poetry, and others. It's interesting that the organizers bring this outstanding list of our discussants. But it's interesting that all of us, with the exception of one person, are similar. Miss Anna Birchall is not only the most promising politician among us, not only outstanding female politician, yeah, but also the only person from the stage who lives not in landlocked country, in Romania. All of our guys are from landlocked countries. And it brings some kind of understanding what it does mean. But of course, Austria created its transport logistical infrastructure a long time ago. don't suffer like us now, being biggest landlocked territory around the world, not being able to produce high quality trade and exchange. So let me turn to my first slide. And this is about problems which landlocked countries and territories facing. Look for the numbers to bring container out of the country to the country in comparison with the territories which have access to the ocean. And look to the number. Only 7% of population on Earth live in landlocked countries. Some time ago it was 5%. And when Ethiopia suddenly, a few years ago, became landlocked, it's turned to be 7%. What all does demonstrate? And look for the numbers of GDP. So most of the GDP produced not very far from the nearest ocean because they can make cheaper trade. Like Ambassador said, let's be practical. So I wanted to turn my presentation into practical presentation. When you live next to ocean, if you don't like anybody, you jump to the boat and go to another friend. If you live in a landlocked country or territory, you must please your neighbors. You must say, could you please give me the way out? So it's old saying, if you live in the sea, you please the world. If you live in landlocked, you please your neighbor. That is maybe why we are not really looking for conflict. People say, why you are not fighting with one neighbor or another, why don't you select, whatever. We don't want it. We always survived being friendly towards neighbors. Otherwise, there's no way to survive at all. But then you can ask the question, it's paradoxical that between 10th and 11th centuries AC, the region was the world leader in economic development, trade, technology, manufacturing, and intellectual life. Central Asia during that period, mainly being the land bridge between China and Europe, was open, willing and able to learn from others, adapt, and to innovate. This was the time of the Great Silk Road. This is the Great Silk Road. This is a land bridge which linked China to Europe, two economic powers of Eurasian continent. The names of the genius scientists, writers, poets, such as Al-Biruni, Ibn Sina, Ferdowsi, Al-Farabi, Balasaguni, and many others are forever inscribed in the annals of the world history. The name of this giant historical fluctuation was connectivity. In the areas where East met West and where boiling cauldron of exchanges emerged, it's led to unique flourishing of the region. So why we became optimistic and sensitive, emotional about New Silk Road? Everything explained. So we have the great chance to return back to be in between of booming economic relationships between East and West. The name of the game is emerging China. No other explanation can be given that we can either restore Great Silk Road or not. If China would not be strong, we would not be connected to powers. Okay, let me go quickly through what's going on now. So I name the phenomenon as Eurasian Rail Revolution. This is what happened 12 years ago when the first train moved from city of Chongqing in China, internal province, to Duisburg. Everybody considers it as a joke, not anymore. Last year, 2022, 16,000 trains passed distance between China to Europe. This is some numbers. The main driving force is China-Europe trade, which last year reached 929 billion. This year it would approach $1 trillion. This is what's happening. 12 years ago, only in 12 years, things changed completely. Why it is happening? Why land transportation picking up market share from sea transportation? It's cheaper. The reason is that now China-Europe trade focusing on high-value goods, not garments, textile anymore. It's phones, computers, vehicles, machinery, and chemicals. So in order not to freeze down the capital for 3 months, you can do it for 12 days. So logisticians and others shipping goods by land. What is important, that China now subsidizing land transportation in order to bring the internal provinces to the life. What's happening that the enterprises, factories, plants move from the seashore of China to the internal provinces where the labor costs are lower. And they ship their product straight to Europe very quickly. Last year, situation in Ukraine. Do you think that the traffic was stopped or decreased? No. It's increased for another 10% through northern route, through Russian territory. And European Union makes special statement that Russian railways should not be sanctioned. So business is first. Yeah? This year it will be another growth. This is some numbers. This is middle corridor. If you look to the north, there is kind of path going through the Russian, Trans-Siberian and Kazakhstani through Belarus, Poland into Europe. And in red lines, they are so-called middle corridor. Why this corridor is going to be more active? Because European politics and European private sector wanted to explore this corridor, although it's more expensive. Especially the bottleneck is traffic through Caspian Sea. So far, middle corridor occupying something like 10% of the total trade between China and Europe, but the market share is growing very quickly. And there are some numbers. I don't want to comment everything, but you can see that, for instance, in 2022, the traffic of cargo increased for another 2.5 times, reaching 1.7 million tons, and EBRD making calculations that in few years it will go to 10 million tons. This is future. Yeah? So promises are here. What is important that in 2017, so-called International Association of Trans-Caspian International Transport Route has been operating, which was launched by Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan. And these days it includes so many countries which are benefiting out of it, and few other countries are joining it. So there is a push, especially from European part, to make this middle corridor more efficient, more cost efficient. This is my last slide, the role of China. This is somewhere else. This is something which happened in ASEAN countries. So China built in 2021 the Kunming-Vientiane Railroad through mountainous Laotian territory with a length of 1,000 kilometers. Look to the number of bridges and tunnels which they built. Absolutely incredible. Very quickly. I have been there a few months ago to see what happened. This is absolutely fantastic. Yeah? They just putting things with a direct light, independent on the canyons or mountains. So what does it show? That Chinese technology, 160 kilometers per hour, drive through the Laotian territory. What does it mean for us? Recently, this year, China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan decided to build another part of a railroad between China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, further to Caspian. It will be another 900 kilometers shorter. It's not 1,000, it's 250 kilometers with a similar landscape, but China can do it. In that respect, the most advanced railway technology which Chinese developing could be applied to that corridor as well. So we're now talking to Chinese and Uzbekistan on financial model. It can be done because it was executed in case of Indochina. And ambitious of China is to bring this railroad straight through Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia to Singapore. So if they did it there, we don't see the reason why they can do it in our part of the world. And what is important, that Europe wants to do the same. There is kind of, again, will from two poles of economic power of Eurasian who could bring this line in life. Who will be most keeping benefits? Everyone, especially those who are landlocked. Us, Serbia, Czech Republic, Azerbaijan, and Romania, because goods will be shipped through Black Sea to your and Bulgarian ports, moving further to the west. So in that respect, we have a lot of optimism. Why don't we repeat great story of the Silk Road when the West will meet East, which is not the case so far, not only in terms of technology, but people to people. That is the key, when you create boiling pot of talents which meet somewhere, maybe in Central Asia, to create another outstanding piece of science, education, and poetry and other literature. It can be done, because it was done a long time ago, and we want to repeat this story again. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for this fascinating presentation. I suggest that we hold a panel now, and then when we hand over to the Q&A, that the distinguished audience might pose a question to all of us, including the Prime Minister, for the sake of efficiency and brevity, if you agree. As a natural follow-up to this discussion, the one touching upon, the connectivity between the East and the West, and the connectivity between the past and the future.
Thank you for arranging. Very good.
Very much in the heart of Europe that we're discussing all this. It gives me a special pleasure to introduce to you my panelists, the panelists of today, truly distinguished European politicians and European public faces from different parts of Europe. What is joint for all of them is that they're all members of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, to which, again, we extend our special appreciation for co-organizing this discussion with us. But first to my left is Anna Birchall from Romania. She's a highly experienced European and Romanian policymaker with a great political future, I might say. But her political past is truly inspirational and successful. She served as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice and Minister of European Affairs of Romania. She is a board member of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, and today she is a special envoy for strategic and international affairs at Nuclear Electrica, which is the Romanian nuclear energy company. Mr. Boris Tadić is a distinguished Serbian statesman, first democratically elected president in the history of Serbia, someone who I had the privilege to serve as foreign minister, amongst other things that I did in the administration of President Boris Tadić. He served prior to being Serbian president as Serbian Minister of Defense, as well as Serbian Minister of Telecommunications, a board member of several academic and public service institutions around the world, as well as some private sector companies around the world. He's also the leader of the Social Democratic Party in Serbia, and by all means an elder of the Balkan and European political affairs. Then last but not least is Jan Fischer, a former Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, having also formerly served as Minister of Finance, as well as the first Deputy Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. Well versed in statistics and econometrics, he used to lead, prior to that, the Czech Republic's National Statistical Office for a number of years, actually 7 years. He was and is still a board member of a number of academic institutions and think tanks, including Jan Evangelista Perkine University, as well as Birchall, Europe's premier Brussels-based think tank for international economics. So we have a very privileged panel with us. I myself, if you allow me to introduce myself, my name is Vuk Jeremić. I served as Serbian foreign minister. I was also president of the United Nations General Assembly at some point. Here I am in the capacity of president of the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development, which is co-organizing with the Diplomatic Academy as well as the NGIC this discussion of the afternoon, and I am also teaching as a visiting professor at Sciences Po, at the Paris School of International Affairs at the Sciences Po University in Paris. But today we'd like to talk about Central Asia and the South Caucasus and the profound implications that addressing this vast geography, rich geography, crucial geography, central geography, in so many ways it can bring to us who live in Europe. So I'm going to start off with Anna, and I'm going to ask a question. We're talking about connectivity. We're talking about corridors, restoring connectivity, not establishing connectivity. But is there going to be anything to connect in the future? I mean, if there is no relationship between East and the West, and I refer to China in particular, and the European Union, because we're talking in Europe, how do you project the the relations between Europe and China in this context of deteriorating geopolitical and geoeconomic circumstances.
Thank you so much, and please allow me to thank you, all and each of you, for taking time to come and meet with us today, and to have this very timely but likewise important topic. I'm here not just as a former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice. I wouldn't mention necessarily Minister of European Affairs. Thank you for reminding me, but being married to a Brit, my mandate was exactly during Brexit. So imagine the headaches I've got during that period. But leaving that aside, I am a proud member of NGIC, which I'll invite you all to discover what this great organization is doing, including not just facilitating debates like this one, or like the Baku Forum, which is becoming one of the most prestigious international forums, is in every March, yearly now. But it's a platform that is connecting people. So to answer to your first question, an organization such as NGIC is helping to have that connectivity, because it's practically, is linking that cultural and people-to-people special relationship that is practically a strong bridge, a strong foundation for everything to be built. And you know that when you have a strong foundation, everything you are building is going to be very strong. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much, not just for your kind words, but for such an amazing presentation and showing exactly where the picture is. Because, Central Asia and the Caucasus obviously played and is playing a pivotal role in restoring global connectivity, primarily not just due to their geographical position, but of the major role that is playing. And I have to say that Romania is very well positioned. As I've been advocating since my time as a Deputy Prime Minister, I was in charge with the strategic partnerships. And obviously, for me, seeing the geographical position that God gave Romania, I wish and I'm hoping that we are taking advantage in a constructive way to really play the role, not just the hub, the regional hub in our region, but actually be the gateway between Asia and Europe, because we can do that. And there are several steps that has been taken towards that. But, these regions act as a bridge, talking about Central Asia and the Caucasus, is acting as a bridge between Europe and Asia, making them crucial for the seamless connection of these continents. And as you mentioned, we are living turbulent times. We are living probably the period where it's shaping not just the regional aspects, but actually the international framework. And I'm hoping that this connectivity between people, firstly, and that soft power of constructive reach out will make a better world and will really shape the future in a better world. And I will just now, if I may, talk a little bit about the energy, because obviously energy is an important issue. And look, I should pay my respects and congratulate the Academy. It is very impressive to educate global leaders since 1754. And that's an amazing track record. And wish you many, many years on this amazing role of shaping the minds of the leaders of tomorrow. But, our host kindly mentioned the importance of the energy. And look, from my humble experience in 2018, 19, we've been advocating the need of taking away the energy from Putin's hands, because he's going to use it as a weapon. And our voices from our Central Eastern Europe, they were powerful, but sometimes some leaders didn't want to really pay attention, believing in quite a specific way, to be polite and to be diplomatic, that they might understand Russia better. Unfortunately, we were right, and energy was used as a weapon, as we are seeing it. So in order to have that connectivity, we need to start from a very basic lesson. Let's not eliminate one dependency by replacing it with another dependency. So the diversification, and I'm very pleased that finally at the level of the EU, you see now the policies that will allow the member states, in terms of the energy mix, that will allow the member states to really create that energy mix according to the realities on the ground, on that particular state. Okay, it's not going to be fashionable to speak in Austria about nuclear, even though I don't really understand why Austria is so against nuclear. We just came from IEA, and we can see the benefits of the nuclear, not just in terms of having one of the most clean, affordable sources of reliable sources of energy, but likewise, you can see the benefits of the nuclear, including on the health, on the water, preservation of water, on the science. It was nicely put it today, science and diplomacy. But it is relevant to know that one way of, like for example, in countries such as Romania and Czech Republic and others from our region, securing that independence is actually investing in nuclear as a source of energy. But when it comes to the interconnectivity, and then I will stop and will refrain.
Be several rounds.
Two major projects, which I'm very proud that in my humble way I contributed. One is the cable, the submarine cable, that we hosted in December 2022, the ceremony of signing the agreement on a strategic partnership in the field of the green energy development and transmission between Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary, and Romania, with a strong focus on the Black Sea green energy submarine cable. This cable practically is going to really connect Azerbaijan with the Black Sea, with Romania. Azerbaijan in one end and Romania at the other end. And it's one of the examples where you could create that connectivity that will really make the difference. And, talking about the energy and the energy crisis, I should mention the role that Azerbaijan was playing in saving Central Eastern Europe, and quite frankly having a major contribution to the EU last winter, for example. It was Azerbaijan who stepped in, and President Aliyev, quite frankly, stepped in and actually helped our region in terms of the energy security. So this cable, this submarine cable, where actually you can add another dimension in terms of the digitalization. And that's creating not just that interconnectivity between Asia and Europe, but actually is creating that bridge that will get those regions so close. And of course, from Romania's perspective, is going to turn Romania into a pivotal role in being exactly that gateway, that hub of entering to the EU and Europe.
Thank you very much, Anna. May I turn to President Tadić right now? And as I said in the introduction, you were one of the pioneers, institutional pioneers of Serbian accession to Europe, and in the context of formal steps taken towards EU membership, as well as the president of Serbia at a time where Serbia was initiating strategic partnerships with China. So, talking as a former president and the current leader and elder, if you will, of cooperation with both Europe and China, and since we're talking about Europe and China and connecting the two in the context of geography and so on and so forth, I want to ask you about your assessment. The Belt and the Road Initiative was launched by President Xi Jinping about 10 years ago, in 2013. It happened to be in Kazakhstan, of all places, which I think underlines the centrality of that geography to the idea of the Belt and the Road. And then Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, she launched the Global Gateway Initiative about 2 years ago in 2021, on December 1, 2021. So that is 8 years after the Belt and the Road. What is your assessment? Is Europe lagging behind? Does it have to catch up with the Belt and the Road? Is that a competition, the Belt and the Road and the Global Gateway? Or can it be, in your opinion, let's meet halfway through, like we're going to build from here to this point, and you start from the east, and let's meet the halfway. Can it be cooperation? Can it be a win-win? Or do you think it's going to be a global competition, well, European and Chinese competition? And if so, then who do you think is ahead in this competition?
Thank you, Vuk. Coming here, we had a meeting in the parliament, and Djoomart Otorbaev, a friend of mine, has been mentioning Austria in the context of the country in between East and West. And I was growing up in Yugoslavia, which was always considered as a country in between East and West. Romania is also a country in between East and West. Central Asia as whole is a phenomena and entity in between East and West, which means that during the history we are trying to connect continents and civilizations. And now, whenever we are talking about civilizations, the book of Samuel Huntington is coming to my mind, The Clash of Civilizations, which was trying to explain that maybe we are coming closer to the end of the history where one civilization is going to dominate. This is Western civilization, and by explaining this with the cultural differences. And after this book, in my mind, is coming Dominic Moissy with Geopolitics of Emotions, who has been trying to explain that in the core of the conflict between civilizations are emotions: hope, humiliation, and fear. By saying that the Western world is dominating, and also Western world is divided by fear. Humiliation is something what Arab countries and Muslim countries are feeling very often. And hope is right now characterizing Asia, China, ASEAN countries, and Central Asia. And third book, which is coming to my mind after what Moderator has been asking me, is Robert Kaplan, who has been writing a book about Adriatic as a concert of civilization. A concert of civilization which is mentioned in the context of Adriatic Sea, which is connecting not only Yugoslavia, but also Austria, Italy, Greece, Albania, nowadays Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro, and other countries. During the history was always, in fact, that central point of concept of civilization. Venice has been existing more than 1,000 years. And the main foundation of existence of Venice was trading between East and West. And the main harbor in that context was, for many, many years, former Austrian harbor, Trieste. And Robert Kaplan is mentioning that Trieste is maybe going to be also focal point in terms of concept of civilization in the future, because this is, in terms of European continent, the deepest harbor in the center of Europe. And he's thinking, by having in mind whole history, description about influence and interconnection between civilizations and the cultures, languages, architecture, everything else, that in the final stage of the 21st century, Adriatic Sea is going to be once again the focal point of concept of civilization, and Trieste is going to be key place in that respect, which is very interesting. I mean, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of geostrategy, in terms of wider perspective. My guess is that the problem nowadays is that strategic thinkers and politicians that are able to think strategically. Not many politicians are able to think strategically, but those politicians that are able to think strategically are very often forgetting to the significance of the imagination. If we are thinking carefully about our continent, where we are existing right now, Central Asia, ASEAN countries, India, China, United States, and Russia, we'll see that maybe that vision of Robert Kaplan is a very realistic. The West and the East are going to have a kind of connection, very sophisticated touch. Where that is going to be? I think maybe Trieste, very close to Vienna, former Austrian harbor, with the many evidences of Austrian architecture, not Italian architecture, with Italian majority, with Slovenian impact in Trieste, many different cultures, languages, but what is the core of that? Trading, economic cooperation. Is it possible to imagine in the future, at the end of the 21st century, that China, which is going to be probably one of the main economic force in next few decades, nowadays they are second, but in next 2 decades they are going to be probably the first. India is coming after China. Indonesia is coming immediately after that. ASEAN countries with 500 million people, comparing with Europe, only 550 million people. Is it possible to imagine that those continents and those economies and those people are not going to be connected somewhere? This is not possible. This is inevitable from my point of view. But I think that the Western world is losing right now opportunity to understand what is going to be inevitable in the future, and losing opportunity to accommodate in a proper way to what is going to be inevitable. This is how I consider the situation. When I was signing strategic partnership with the Hu Jintao, President of China, in 2009, I think, Vuk, if you can remind me.
2009.
2009. We started to talk about Silk Way. 5 years after that, in 2013, in fact, President Xi Jinping has been mentioned in his famous speech in Kazakhstan that what Belt and Road Initiative is going to be launched. But 5 years before that, I talked with the President of China, Hu Jintao, and Vice President of China was Xi Jinping. Idea wasn't formed, completed in that time. That was only kind of imagination. And I started to explain to them, on the way from Shanghai, from China, towards Paris, London, is the Balkans and Central Europe. Let's do something for our common vision. Let's do something to connect our people. And first infrastructural project was a bridge in Belgrade over the Danube River, one of the biggest bridge in Serbia and in this part of Europe. And Danube is connecting us. Austria, Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, and Ukraine finally. And my vision was, if this process is inevitable, let's do something right now. Let's make a monument which is going to be very useful. This is bridge. And nowadays we have that kind of legacy. I remember Hu Jintao have said, that bridge has to be very nice. If that is going to be bridge, and the first step, first pillar in terms of Silk Way strategy in that time, he didn't mention Belt and Road Initiative because this initiative didn't exist in the form nowadays. We did it. We did it. At the same time, we see Europe, a lot of fear. I am right now coming once again to the emotion which is defined by Dominic Moissy. A lot of fear in terms of connection with China. A lot of fear in terms of understanding Russia. A lot of fear in terms of understanding Ukraine. a lot of fear in terms of relations between United States and Europe. I see fear is a still main characteristic of the Western world. What about humiliation? We see the outcome in terms of Islamic terrorism, and lack of trusting is one of the crucial problems on the European continent in terms of so-called religious terrorism. What about hope? Nowadays, really, regarding economic perspective and figures, Asia is looking much better than Europe. But only way to keep position of Europe and to strengthen our common position is to accommodate ourselves in next few decades, not to make resistance from something which is inevitable. This is only way how we can keep initiative, how we can keep our position, which is extremely important also regarding future of India and China and Asian countries. This is how I see cooperation and interconnection.
Thank you, Mr.
nowadays.
President. Can I now shift to Prime Minister Fischer? And Mr. Prime Minister, Europe comes to Central Asia and the South Caucasus, and there are other actors, there are other players there, and some of which we can perhaps work with, and some of which we need to be careful about, and so on and so forth. So what are the top three things, in your opinion, that Europe has to offer to Central Asia and the South Caucasus, apart from the obvious, here we are a big market for the products that may be transported via your territory or be made maybe in your country. So what are the top three things that, in your opinion, Europe has to offer to Central Asia?
Thank you very much giving me the floor. First of all, I am very pleased to be here, to be provided with the opportunity to share my opinion with this distinguished audience, with my dear colleagues sitting in the panel and members of the NGIC family. Before I will try my best to answer your questions, so let me a little bit contemplate about the about the context, what we are talking about the improving the connectivity. Why do we need it? We need more connectivity. I'm not expert in building some roads or something like that. But now some words on the context. What are we witnessing currently in this dramatically developing and sometimes gloomily developing planet and the world? The first thing we are witnessing of the, could be said, unprecedented tectonic geopolitical shifts in global geopolitics, and massive and substantial changes in the global economy and in the features of the global economy. What we are doing, observing this situation, by the way, the situation where so far unconceivable is getting reality, sometimes very gloom reality. Russian aggression against Ukraine, the events in the Middle East, and I don't know what we can expect later on, and just honestly speaking, I didn't expect that these events could get in my lifetime. So, and what we are doing, we are observing the thing, trying to analyze them, looking around, be trapped, be surprised, and sometimes be, let's say, delayed in adaptation and reaction to it. That's connected with the with the leadership of the politicians, with the potential of the international organizations, starting with the United Nations, ending up with European Union and everything in between, international financial institutions. I have on mind as well. The issue of the geopolitics is the problem that we are not in position to, let's say, evaluate and to assess adequately what the multilateralism actually means. That's the new, let's say, the new shape of the world, and sometimes we are the victims of the very old-fashioned thinking about this world, nationwide and on the international level as well. And you mentioned several very nice books. I will add one. It's 14 years ago when the fantastic book written by Professor Talab and named Black Swan was published. And that is the point we are facing currently in this world, which was unexpected. It's getting reality with the very, very important and important consequences. And it doesn't matter whether it could be expected. Russia could be expected, but it wasn't anyway. So, and then you have the classical black swan effect, if you want. So, and this is the one of the paradoxes of this world. On one hand, we have the, let's say, piles of indicators, statistics, data, figures, I don't know what, big data. We have artificial intelligence involved, but our potential of predictability is pretty low anyway. So look back, what could be expected, what could be forecast, and it didn't happen. So that's a very interesting feature of this world. And we have, in fact, we have more questions than answers anyway. So do we need a new paradigm of the global economics? Because so far we live very comfortably with the globalization concept as a prevailing concept, or concept which was, let's say, which covered was the dominating feature of the global economy. And everything was unbearably light, unbearably light. We were satisfied, everything worked. Then COVID came and broke and then wars arrived. And now we are looking at the fragmentation of globalization. And do we have a new concept of the global, of the behaving of the global and featuring of the global economy? I'm sure that we haven't so far. And that's the really problem. Can we adapt ourselves on the let's say, digitalized economy on the international and national level? What about inequalities, which are worsening? If you look at the very statistical figure, which is the Gini's coefficient, Gini coefficient, it's worsening. Speak in terms of the, let's say, growing gaps between generations, regions, continents. This is a fact. Inequality. We are living in the world of inequalities. And this is the world in which we are looking for alternatives, alternative sources of energy, more secure, alternative of the functioning of the global economy. We are looking for alternatives in behaving of international organizations, and it could be said the better functioning, not replacing, but the better functioning of the world what we call world order. It shouldn't be swept, as Trump expected anyway, so no, it's not a way out. But improving the role of this international organization as a platform for, let's say, good cooperation. So what we need is what Djoomart Otorbaev presented here. That's the way out. The bridging, the not only territories, bridging the civilizations, the focal points of the world economy. And this is, in fact, the only way out to stop the building up ditches and to start the building up bridges. And very concrete project is the Silk Road. I don't know what, with the full involvement of the countries which we need to have them involved. Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Caucasus, and interconnected China with Europe and everything around it. So I could, let's say, sound a little bit gloomily, but let me finish with saying that despite of all these things and bad things which we are witnessing in this world, I am doing my best to behave as an optimist, so optimistic way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And practically, if we can, just to add on what you're saying, practically the middle corridor will be the link between Central Asia, Caucasus, Azerbaijan, and Europe. And it won't be just that link in terms of the energy, in terms of the goods, but will be that cultural link as well. And that will diversify not just the energy, but will diversify the supply chain and everything, all the challenges that we've been facing during the pandemic. And of course, let's not lose the importance of the cultural linkage.
This is very important what you are saying, because I'm the guy who is used to think a little bit technocratically, of course, having on mind my past and the education, I don't know what, and so far activities. But it's very important to stress it. It's not the song about some technicalities, about the energy and flow of gas and I don't know what, but also about the exchange of in the field of culture.
Okay, let me interrupt you there and ask you quick questions before I give on to the audience. I ask you not to get into too many details. I just want to re-energize your conversation before giving over to the floor. Mr. President, President Tadić, you met several times President Xi Jinping, and you also met President Putin several times. And,
yes.
And we're talking about Central Asia, and we're talking about some sort of a great game. Do you see Russia and China as a single united bloc when it comes to Central Asia and the South Caucasus? I'm not talking about diverse global affairs, but with this particular geography in mind, Central Asia and South Caucasus, do you see China and Russia as a bloc, or do you see more room for a nuance in this regard?
I mean, primarily, no. This is outcome of the war that happened right now. That wasn't the idea, but the Western world is pushing Russia far in the hands of China, which is, from my point of view, a big mistake. When you are pushing your rival or enemy far from you, you don't have influence on him, and you have a problem with him in the future. Maybe not in the recent period of time, but in the future, you are going to have a problem. If Russia, with such big nuclear power, is going to be main ally of China, China is going to be more powerful, and China is going to have a strategic weapon, Sarmat, Kinjal, in their hands, and which is big failure in terms of strategy. I'm European. I'm Serbian, but I'm European. I consider my country part of European Union strategy. And when I'm thinking about it, imagining that, I feel a fear. What can be final outcome of that? China is looking, I mean, their leadership is looking more reasonable right now, not that aggressive. But if that is going to be final outcome of the war in Ukraine, I'm afraid we are going to have a very bad impact of this war. This is what I see right now. But do not forget, the last war China had was with Russia, USSR, about border. That was 1970s.
Usure.
Yeah, that was the last war in which China was involved, serious war. And do not, well, they had a kind of conflicts also with India and Vietnam, I remember. But the main war, strategic war, was that war. And China is not forgetting. China is memorizing everything, and China is thinking like, I'm not going to mention animal, which is memorizing perfectly whole history, but you understand what I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anna, I'm going to shift to you, and I'm going to stick with these big picture stuff. And imagine a future, and you're a leader of Romania in the future, and there is an elevating, I'd say, escalating tension between the United States and China in the Pacific, and not to do with Central Asia, and not to do with economic trade between China and Europe. As one of the leaders of Europe, one of the people who are sitting at the European Council in that future under such circumstances, what would be your sway towards the fellow Europeans? There is an escalation of tension, quite possibly a war taking place in the Pacific. But there's a clear economic interest of Europe to continue trading via Central Asia, let's say, with China. What would be your priority at the European Council under the circumstances?
Well, I think the dialogue is one of those main bricks, and I am expecting that the dialogue will be as we speak, and I don't think is that's why I've been mentioning early on that this connectivity firstly needs to be between people, and you can do wonders when it comes to that connectivity in terms of the dialogue. So I'm not going to envision the scenario you mentioned, because I'm hoping that will never come to that, because I do believe that there is no need of course, always is going to be a competition between continents, between countries, and so on and so forth. But the strategic partnership, it's a strategic partnership. And when it comes to our part of the world, I have to say that the role the United States played and is playing, it's a crucial role in terms of including securing our energy, as I mentioned. So, I give you the example, another great example of the connectivity is the Three Seas Initiative, where it's coming through, is connecting those three seas. The role that United States is playing in this initiative, even though it's not necessarily directly linked on those, at the same time with some of the European countries, such as France and Germany and UK, is really crucial. So I guess I'm not running away from answering directly to your question, but as we've been mentioning, and I don't like speculating what's going to happen, when and how. I want to live in the present. And the present is, yes, we are living in a very turbulent world. I just came from Bahrain. It was the IISS Strategic Manama Dialogue. And, the discussions on and off the record, in this conference, same as in platforms like this, is about dialogue and restoring that basic trust that when you are having, a challenge, you just need to have a cool head and practically don't lose don't lose track of the dialogue and try to build on that. Because if we are going to allow conflicts to win over, that means we are, that outcome when we are living in a very challenging as we all mentioned, shifting the whole, not just regionally speaking, but globally. I think it's important to have that foundation that is based on the rule of law, is based on the international law, and is based on the mutual respect and trust as well. And, you know, I am not a conflictual person. I don't like conflicts. We can debate ideas, but there is no need to escalate. And, you know, look what is happening now in Gaza. I do believe that the two-state solution will be a solution. You know, killing the civilians is not a way forward. So I'm not going, look, Pacific always going to be a very interesting part of the world, but hey, same the Black Sea. And I would like to focus on the Black Sea, and I would like my region, as I said, and with Romania playing a major role, our region is like a diamond that needs to be allowed to shine. And I think all the countries, Serbia, you know, and the other countries from Central Eastern Europe, they really need to step up and really play that major role that I think we can, including inside the EU, but likewise regionally, and be that gateway and that link between Asia and Europe.
Thanks, Anna. And the last question before I give a chance to the audience to ask the questions. Prime Minister Fischer, you served as finance minister before becoming prime minister. So I'm going to ask you a question about finance related to Central Asia and South Caucasus. Right now, the reserve currency, the currency of trade, the currency of choice there, like elsewhere, is essentially the United States dollar. Now, fast forward 5 to 7 years from now and think of a Central Asian and South Caucasus geography. What do you think is going to be the currency, the financial currency that is going to be predominant in that area? Let's say that connectivity is successfully restored, that we have a flourishing trade. There is like a new Silk Road in reality. Now, what will be the currency dominating that road? Is that going to be still US dollar? Is that going to be euro? Is that going to be yuan? Or something else? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. And do have for me as a gift in your pocket a crystal ball anyway, so look, let's say 10, 15 years ahead.
5 to 7 years.
What, 7? Okay, fine, 5 years. Very difficult to say whether it will be the Chinese currency or not, or dollars or something like that. But I think that as the international currency, we will, let's say, still stay with the dollar for a pretty long time without. That's my prediction anyway. I don't know whether Djoart is the same opinion. By the way, we worked for the same international financial institution. It was the EBRD located in London. We didn't meet there, but we have the spirit of this institution somewhere built in. So I would say that looking at the situation in international finance, I think that the prevailing currency, the dollar, stay for still some decades. If something like some newly born black swan effect wouldn't occur. So, but I don't expect it. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, and I think this has been pretty good developed in the Central Asian countries, banking system, financial institution, I would say financial legislation. It's on a very good level. Microfinance, which is very important for, let's say, households and for SMEs in this kind of countries. It's pretty on good good level. What is very painful anyway, so in many European countries, and not only European, but namely in European countries, and which couldn't be, let's say, coordinated from Brussels or something like that. Those are fiscal policies of governments anyway. COVID brought the situation when governments started, I saw it in my country, pouring the money to the economy, to the society, to the households. Sometimes it was clearly understandable, sometimes not. It was the pure populism anyway, and let's say misuse of the situation that COVID pandemic brought. So a lot of European countries has a problem with the, let's say, situation in the fiscal policy, state budget unbalances, unbalanced internal unbalances, external disequilibriums, and so on and so forth. So that's very unpopular for government to tighten the fiscal policy and not to extend the expenditures, and on the other hand, to, let's say, to curb the expenditures of the national budgets. And that's what many countries of the European Union suffer with. And by the way, that's the good, let's say, door open for populists of any kind. That anyway, we can do it. We pump the additional money to the economy, and could be said, paying this debt. That's the job for others and for the next generations. That's not business for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Now I give a chance to the audience to ask the questions to any of us, including the Prime Minister. Sir, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Krauchenberg Institute for the Danube region and Central Europe. I was very impressed by the presentation of Prime Minister Otorbaev, including the railways, for instance, Kunming to Vientiane, Laos, and we know Chinese can build railways. They did it also to Tibet. And I just wonder, there are advantages. First of all, climatic advantage, because Siberia in the wintertime, it's a different story from the further south. And there is the same gauge, the Spurweite, same gauge between China and Central Europe. I just wonder about Caspian Sea. Would it be trains, complete trains on ships? And then the line, is it Bishkek, somewhere there to Urumqi? Because Almaty, because to the south there are these high mountain ranges. Could you please elaborate a little bit? Thank you.
So, Mr. Prime Minister?
So immediately...
Yes, please.
Okay. So I've been to Laos myself, and it was a fantastic story of how they did it. So the distance between Chinese border to Uzbek border is 250 kilometers, 4 times shorter. And the cost would be around $5 billion. Now we're discussing financial model. There's no doubt that China can do it. They did it in Laos, which much more complicated mountainous range. So we are very optimistic that it can be done. The reason why China did not do it earlier, because China is very business oriented. So they see the traffic, they see business, so they're prepared to go for the finance it. If they today shipping 2 fully loaded trains per hour to Europe, and it will be 3 soon. It is business. So if there is a business, China will go for that. Technical problems, they will solve. Caspian Sea crossing, so far the bottleneck, it costs around $2,000 to ship 20-foot container from port of Aktau to Baku. But there is a lot of discussions now and requests to Chinese on to how to make this multimodal transformation. Another point on technical, which you mentioned, no, you not mentioned, but it exists, it's different gauge from Chinese narrow to the Soviet broader and then further down to narrow. Before, we have to spend few hours to change gauges. Now it's few minutes. Chinese technology. They're just passing this Horgos passes, Alatao, and then they going up, down. I didn't mention another point is soft infrastructure, regulation, crossing the customs borders. So now all those consortium, TR consortium, they harmonizing legislation along the route. So for the time being, the distance can be crossed in 12 days. And it will be less than that very soon, up to 9 days. So if you have 9 days of transportation between inland Chinese province to the port, dry port like Duisburg, then the traffic will increase. With increase of traffic, costs will go down. So it's already going that way. And then it will be a competition with few trajectories, and competition is always good. So I wanted to demonstrate that Europe should find a way how to communicate with China on technological area. For instance, Europe saying we won't allow Chinese build railroad on our territory because the standards not in accordance with European legislation, which is strange because Europeans should adopt legislation which is better, more modern. Look for China these days. So this, in that respect, business should persuade regulators to improve soft infrastructure. So now it's already in the process, and Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan harmonizing the logistic legislation in order that it will be really transferred from pathway to highway.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Just a quick observation. In about 5 minutes, Mr. President Tadić will have to leave us because he is leaving for a meeting with a high-level official, former high-level official of Austria. So if you have a question, could you please direct it to him first before he leaves us?
If you don't have it?
Because we're going to have like 10 more minutes in general. But Mr. Tadić, if anybody has a specific question for Mr. Tadić. Sir, please.
Thank you so much. Well, this is just part of many questions, but a specific question.
So if you could just use the microphone. I can hear you very well, but everybody else would have to hear
The
you.
specific question, I think, is caused by a remark you made. It's about water. I think this is a very essential point in Central Asia and also large parts of Asia, because, I speak from experience. I was United Nations Economic Commission for Europe regional advisor for Eastern Europe's former Soviet Union, which included exactly Central Asian countries. Mm-hmm. And I remember a very concrete, some conflicts from upstream to downstream countries, Kyrgyzstan versus Uzbekistan. Kyrgyzstan wanted to produce electricity from the rivers, and Uzbekistan wanted to grow cotton and make money. Result, everybody knows what happens to Aral Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very concrete point, but may I just add something? What one should not forget is that in all exchanges, dependencies, the question is who is profiting most from it? If the profit is not distributed in some just way, then all the historic and other bad feelings come about. China accusing Russia of colonialism, taking away large parts of China. And I mean, this is such a general point that I don't need to look specifically at Asia. But water, I think, is so important because many people don't know or don't understand that a large part of Chinese politics is based on wanting to have more water. Conflicts with India, conflicts
they are very serious. Or in the Mekong River region, it's all about water. And Asia, Central Asia, especially China, they are enormously thirsty. How can you solve that? Not just by making trains. You must think further than that. Thank you.
Only one reflection on what you've said. I fully agree with you. Water is a key. The main issue is crucial. Access to the water, corridors, water corridors. This is not only Silk Way, Silk Road. This is belt, which is extending to the water. And now, when we are talking about this is two main issues, and the conflicts China has with the Western world are Taiwan and the sea surrounding Taiwan and South China Sea. This is extremely sensitive area, much more than Ukraine, regarding potential global conflict, because in that area we have a conflicting zone between 500 million people living in ASEAN countries and China, and also Taiwan and China. And also behind of those countries I mentioned are United States, and right now not only United States, NATO is transforming towards Atlantic Alliance, towards Pacific Alliance. And this is Australia, this is Japan, and this is South Korea right now in coalition with the United States. And all strategies transforming right now, and this is depend on water and water corridors. This is very, very much important. This is why I mentioned the book of Robert Kaplan and Trieste Harbor. Not only water, but also harbors are very important. China is looking for harbors. I was somehow involved in a Piraeus case, because in that time, Prime Minister of Greece was asking me to help them to make connection with China. I was making connection between Chinese government and the Greek government, and they were investing in Piraeus Harbor. But I think if I were in the shoes of Chinese president, I would be very much focused on Trieste. Trieste is crucially important for Chinese interests right now. This is why I fully agree with Robert Kaplan, who has been mentioning this. And also, Danube is very important for China, because Danube can make that way shorter through Egypt, and the Suez Canal can make a shorter way, and specifically this is a project, very old project, that we've been considering seriously in Serbia to make canal, to build canal from Vardar River, Thessaloniki, Morava River, and Danube, which is avoiding, unfortunately, Constanza Harbor and making much shorter way for 15 days. And this is very important regarding transportation and this. I fully agree with you, the water is a key.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you all for a very excellent presentation. So I want to ask you not about connectivity, but I'd like to ask you about your views about China, if it's a threat, if it's a Cold War now or not. There was an article I haven't read yet that came into my mailbox this morning from Foreign Affairs that said the Cold War isn't on yet. I don't know if that's true or not, but how do you view China? The narrative seems to be in the U.S. that China is a huge threat, and I'm curious about your views. Thank you again for excellent presentations.
Anna, do you want to start? And then Mr. Prime Minister. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if it's, we are on the brink of another Cold War or not, but all I know is that at least in our part of the world, as I mentioned earlier, the role of United States is and will continue to be very critical. Same as I expect the European Union to continue to have, a very wise policy and to have a role, as we always talked at the EU level, to have a global role on the international arena. But those are turbulent times. So I think intelligent, precautious comments are in order, because as as we are witnessing as we speak, in Middle East. You know, I have 20-something years in diplomacy at the highest level. And Romania was one of the very few countries, I should say, that was trusted both by Israel and Palestine. And yet, as we are witnessing, and the level of anger, I don't know, we were talking earlier, I don't know what happened with the humankind, and I'm hoping that we will get all of us in a better place, but it looks like after the pandemic, I mean, the pandemic kind of brought the worst in what is happening. I mean, if you remember from the very beginning, it was that euphoria where we were helping each other. And now it's, you know, the rising of the populist, extremist. I quite frankly, I am incredibly worried. I mean, until we will facing what you are saying, I am completely worried about next year EU election, quite frankly, with the rising of the extremist and the populist. And we just had a very good talk in the parliament. You know, the extremists and the populists are just giving their views, but they don't give the solutions. And, you know, this is incredibly dangerous. And when we are in the middle of a hybrid war, okay, with so much fake news, so much manipulation, so much, you know, uncertainty, you wonder, and with too many politicians that are going on the populist route, extremist route, instead of going on the policy-orientated type of answers and solutions. And that's why I commend this academy, because, you know, we are having sound discussions about the policies and solutions in terms of the policy, not just the quick saying the most fashionable or what is popular for the audience to hear. Because you know what? That's the circle. As young politicians, you know, and this doesn't make our life easier. Okay, doesn't make.
I don't consider myself to be young anymore. Thank you.
But you know, but no, and to you, all of you, because you know, doesn't make the life of the politicians that are approaching the difficult path of promoting and saying the solutions in terms of the policy. But you know what? I will ever, as I've done it in my political and public life, I will go on this route, because you know what? Notoriety doesn't mean trust. And people, in the end of the day, as my grandma used to say, what you have here and in your heart, nobody can take away from you. And I will always, always advocate for policies and solutions, sound solutions, than just the quick bite. But you know what? This circle, because then the extremists are going, and you will see the circle and the circus next year on the EU election. I can bet you, don't bet, because I will become a very rich person winning every single bet. But you know what? They will go promising the earth and the moon and everything, and then people are believing those promises. And then when they don't deliver, people are so disappointed. And that's why you will have that anger and the distrust in terms of the politicians and the political class. Why are they not delivering? So I guess, you know, the conclusion is, in any conflict or in any situation, let's go with what is the solution in terms and not what is the fancy football. I have a boy, and my husband is a crazy Liverpool fan. So, you know, you can imagine my language on the football. But, you know, it's not fancy football. It actually should be the realities.
Great. So let's, thank you. I'm going to ask the two prime ministers to take on the same question, and then I'm going to take the same question, but we got to make it quicker than Anna. Let's be gentlemen and let's be quicker in our answers, because we need to close in a few minutes from now. And it's an exceptionally, I think, profound and important question. Are we or are we not in a Cold War with China already? Mr. Prime Minister, and then I'm going to close the floor.
I will try my best to shoot my
but you got to be fast.
As quick as possible. China, you see, to have a good, let's say, judgment about China, good treatment of China, good policy and policy making toward China, that means what I mentioned before, to have the better insight what this multilateral world actually means. And that is much more complicated that we have the dual system or bilateral system 30, 35 years before. That's absolutely different, and we don't have any concept, but we don't have better understanding and so on. On one hand, China is the relevant partner in a business for private sector, even for governments anyway. On the other hand, it has to be balanced with the observation and commenting the state of art with human rights in China, rule of law. It couldn't be suppressed anyway. It has to be revealed when speaking with Chinese. Cooperation with China doesn't mean that we leave Taiwan from our focus, because that's the very hope for cooperation, also business-like anyway. As concerns Europe and Brussels and European Union, that's the problem of the Brussels external policy or politics, international affairs. So do we have any unified concept of the foreign policy of the European Union? That's crazy, but we haven't got it. Not yet. If you look at the Middle East, there is so differences between the member states that it's lost speak about that. And this is something similar to China. Maybe not so dramatic, but also there is a lot of differences.
Thank you.
So this is something we have to, let's say, to shape. So on one hand, business partner, yes, but watching what's going on with the human rights, root of the law, treatment of Uyghurs or something like that, I would like to, let's say, not speak about the examples anyway. So, but very important, and it's necessary to put it on the table very openly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, are we in a Cold War with China?
My interpretation of current deglobalization process is that West is losing competition against China and putting barriers for fair trade, which is counterproductive, will be leading to success. The problem which would arise with deglobalization and dividing global north from global south is that Europe could start disengaging from, let's say, Asia, led by China. In that case, this idea of connectivity of West and East could put under the threat, which is not good. So Europe, as I agree with my colleagues, friends, has to decide. Either they will be joining a process of containing China, or they will be brave enough to start compete with China and trade through this route. So there are risks, but as the director of the institute said, Europeans, you're pragmatic people. So cooperation and trade, healthy competition with Asia would lead to win-win situation, provided that there will not be political pressure under which so-called security reasons, etc., Europe could abstain from this global connectivity. In that respect, we will face, to my mind, a lot of challenges ahead of us. But what we can do now is to push for bridging the gap between West and East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And let me, before thanking everybody for joining us, for being patient, and for listening out to us, let me give you my 10 cents on that very question. If you heard what Anna and the two prime ministers said, the conclusion is, in my opinion, yes, we are very much in a Cold War. The Cold War has started. The question is, how are we going to handle this situation? It's not necessarily fatal. I mean, we gotta see how we're gonna handle this situation. When I say we, I'm talking about Europe, because we're here in Europe, we're in Vienna. This is very much the heart of Europe. We're not sitting in Florida, we're not in New York, we're not in Asia, we are in Vienna. So when I say we, I refer to Europe. So I think that we're not even in the foothills of the Cold War. According to Henry Kissinger, we're already in the high mountain passes of the Cold War. The question is how we're going to handle this. It doesn't have to be a war, a hot war, but even the first hot war of the Cold War we already have on our hands. And in the grand scheme of things, my opinion is that Ukraine war is the first hot war of the Cold War that we're going to be witnessing. In a similar way that the first hot war of the original Cold War was not in Europe, although the first Cold War was in Europe. The first hot war of the Cold War was in Asia, and that was the Korean War. Now, the first hot war of the new Cold War, which is across the Pacific, happens to be in another continent, which is in Europe, our continent. I think that it doesn't have to be tragic. We need to face the situation. We are profoundly different systems. We are different cultures, but we're same species and we share the same planet. So we have the same concerns about the well-being of our respective populations, about preserving the earth, about fighting climate change together, and so on and so forth. So this opens up far more than just one question, and I'm in the closing session.
Yeah, but I need to make one remark, because in my opinion, we should not give hope of preventing a Cold War. And we are in an academic environment here, in a diplomatic academy, and I am not giving up the hope that we, through dialogue, through connectivity, we will prevent the Cold War. Because you know what? I was 16 in 1990, and I don't want and I lived, I was, old enough to see what was happening, but not mature enough to rationalize the effects, especially in Romania, in the last years of the communist dictatorship. And I will never, ever accept to see another phrase bring that, tear that war down, okay? So I think we all owe it, because you said that we have so many, rightly said, that we have so many common goals in terms of energy security, climate change, rule of law, and all those goals that are rights, human basic rights. I am personally not accepting to give up the hope of preventing any other Cold War who proved to not bring anything good, at least in countries such as Romania in our region. And we've been hurt and pushed back, practically kept, not allowing our full potential to be developed just because of that. So here, let's agree to disagree. That I really don't want, and I'm not agreeing that we are facing that prospect of being in a Cold War, but I'm not giving the hope yet that maybe we can avoid it through diplomacy and intelligent diplomacy. And that personal network from all of us. Sorry.
Is this the last word?
Yes, I don't want that peer, to have
Thank you for
word.
being so inspirational, and thank you for saying so many deep thoughts at the very end. I really think it was very worth it. And I want to thank you all for being with us, for hearing us out. There are strong views that we are in the middle of a Cold War already. There are very strong views that we're not, and that we should work together to try and avoid it. There is definitely lots at stake. There are parts of the world which remains not well understood, by most, and I hope that this work that we've done together with the Diplomatic Academy and the NGIC, together with my think tank CIRSD, had brought us closer, us in Europe, closer to the understanding of that part of the world. This is the second year that we are doing the Central Asian Conference together with the Diplomatic Academy. I hope we stick to this. And I hope that come next November, that it's going to become an established annualized event. But my deep gratitude goes to the Diplomatic Academy for partnering up with us, for being the venue, and I very much hope that the NGIC as well as the CIRSD are going to keep doing our work together here in Vienna. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, and thank you to you.